The gunshot that killed Jacob Vance echoed through the canyon long after his body hit the ground, and his wife Josephine knew from that single crack of thunder that her life would never be the same. She stood in the doorway of their modest ranch house outside Panamint, California, with her 4 children clustered behind her skirts, watching as the sheriff and 3 other men rode up the dusty path, carrying her husband's body draped across his horse. It was August of 1878, and the merciless sun beat down on the dry earth as if mocking her grief. Little Tommy, only 5 years old, started crying first, followed by 7-year-old Sarah, then 9-year-old Michael, and finally 13-year-old Rebecca, who tried to be strong but couldn't stop the tears from streaming down her sun-browned cheeks. Sheriff Morris dismounted slowly, his weathered face grave beneath his hat. "Mrs. Vance, I am terribly sorry. Jacob was ambushed by cattle rustlers up in the northern pasture. He fought them off, saved most of the herd, but he took a bullet. Died quick, if that is any comfort." It was no comfort at all. Josephine felt her knees weaken, but she forced herself to stand tall. She was 28 years old, and now she was alone with 4 children, a failing ranch, and winter coming in a few months. The ranch hands Jacob had employed had already left last month when he could no longer afford to pay them. The cattle were half what they had been a year ago. The banknote was due in 3 months. She buried Jacob on a hillside overlooking the valley, where he had always said he wanted to rest. The whole town came out for the funeral, offering condolences and casseroles. But Josephine knew that sympathy would not pay the bills or mend the fences or round up the cattle that needed to be sold before the first snow. She stood by the grave long after everyone left, her children finally coaxed away by Mrs. Henderson from the general store, and she made herself a promise. She would not lose this ranch. She would not let her children starve. She would find a way. The first week after the funeral, she took stock of everything they had. 43 head of cattle, down from nearly 100 the year before. 6 chickens. 2 horses, one of them getting old. A barn that needed repairs. Fences that were falling down in at least a dozen places. Fields that needed harvesting. She had exactly $47 in a tin box under the floorboards and a banknote for $200 due in November. She started work before dawn and finished after dark. Rebecca helped where she could, taking over the cooking and minding the younger children. Michael tried to help with the heavier work, but at 9, he was still too small to do much more than feed the chickens and collect eggs. Josephine learned to swing a hammer, to mend fences with wire that cut her hands bloody, to herd cattle on horseback even though she had always been afraid of riding too fast. Her hands developed calluses. Her face grew even more tanned despite the bonnet she wore. She lost weight she could not afford to lose. 3 weeks after Jacob's death, she was trying to fix a broken wheel on their wagon when a rider came down the road. She looked up, shielding her eyes against the late September sun, and saw a tall man on a paint horse. He sat easy in the saddle, wearing dusty trail clothes and a hat that had seen better days. As he got closer, she could see he was young, probably not much older than 30, with dark hair and a lean face that looked both kind and weathered by hard living. He stopped at the edge of her property and tipped his hat. "Afternoon, madam. Name is Benjamin Nash. I heard in town that you might be needing a ranch hand." Josephine straightened up, wiping her greasy hands on her apron. "I am afraid you heard wrong, Mr. Nash. I cannot afford to hire anyone." He dismounted and walked his horse closer, moving with the easy grace of someone who had spent most of his life in the saddle. Up close, she could see his eyes were a startling blue, honest eyes that looked at her with something like respect. "I heard that too. I also heard you are trying to run this place alone with 4 young ones to care for. I'm not looking for money, Mrs. Vance. Just food and a place to sleep, and maybe a chance to earn a stake come spring when you sell your cattle." She stared at him, suspicious. "Why would you work for nothing?" "I did not say nothing. I said food and shelter and a percentage of the profits when you sell. I am a fair hand with cattle, good with horses, and I can fix just about anything that is broken. You need help and I need a place to winter. Seems like we could help each other." Josephine wanted to say no. She did not know this man. He could be anyone. A thief, a murderer, someone with bad intentions toward her or her children. But she looked at the broken wagon wheel, at the fences she could see falling down in 3 different directions, at the barn with its sagging roof, and she thought about winter coming and 4 children depending on her. "Where are you from, Mr. Nash?" "Most recently, Wyoming. Before that, Montana, and before that, Texas, which is where I was born. I have worked cattle drives, broken horses, worked as a ranch hand from the time I was 14 years old. I can give you references, but they are all at least 2 states away." "Why did you leave Wyoming?" Something shifted in his expression, a flash of old pain. "The ranch I worked for went under. Owner lost everything to a bad winter and worse debts. I drifted south looking for work, but most places are laying hands off this time of year, not hiring them." She studied him for a long moment. He met her gaze steadily, not looking away, not fidgeting. There was something solid about him, something that reminded her a little of Jacob in his younger days, before worry and debt had worn him down. "I have 4 children, Mr. Nash. If I let you stay, you would sleep in the barn and you would be expected to behave with absolute propriety. I will not have any gossip that could harm my children's reputations." "Yes, madam. I understand completely. You would work for your keep, and 10% of whatever profit we make when we sell the cattle in the spring. If you steal from me, if you harm my children in any way, if you give me any cause to distrust you, I will shoot you myself. You understand?" He almost smiled at that, just a slight quirk of his mouth. "Yes, madam, I understand. Then you can start by fixing this wagon wheel. I need to get into town tomorrow, and I have been fighting with this cursed thing for 2 days." He handed her his horse's reins and knelt down by the wagon without another word. She watched him work for a moment, noting the competent way he examined the problem, then led his horse to the barn. When she came back, he had already identified the issue and was working to fix it with tools from his saddlebag. That evening at dinner, she introduced him to the children. Rebecca looked at him with open suspicion, Michael with curiosity, Sarah with shyness, and little Tommy with fear. Benjamin sat at the end of the table, hat in his lap, and spoke to them with gentle respect. "I am pleased to meet you all. Your mother has agreed to let me work here for a while, helping with the ranch work. I will be staying in the barn, and I promise I will do my best to be helpful and stay out of your way." "Are you going to be our new papa?" Tommy asked, his voice small. The question hung in the air like smoke. Josephine felt her face flush hot. "Tommy, that is not an appropriate question." Benjamin shook his head gently. "No, son. I am just a hired hand here to help your mama with the heavy work. Nobody could replace your papa." Tommy's face crumpled and Sarah started crying. Josephine shot Benjamin an angry look, though she knew he had only been trying to be honest, and gathered Tommy into her arms. "It is all right, sweetheart. It is all right." The meal continued in awkward silence. After dinner, Benjamin thanked her quietly and went out to the barn. Rebecca helped clear the dishes, her expression still suspicious. "Mama, are you sure about this? Having a strange man here?" "I am not sure about anything anymore, Rebecca. But we need help, and he seems decent enough. We will be careful, but we will also be grateful for the assistance." The next morning, Josephine woke before dawn as usual and was surprised to see lamplight already glowing in the barn. When she went out to start the morning chores, she found Benjamin had already fed the horses, collected the eggs, and was working on repairing a broken stall door. He looked up when she entered. "Morning, Mrs. Vance. I hope you do not mind. I am used to early hours. You did not have to do all this. We have a deal. I work for my keep. I intend to earn it." Over the next few weeks, Benjamin proved himself worth far more than his keep. He repaired all the broken fences, fixed the barn roof, helped Josephine round up the scattered cattle and move them to better pasture. He was patient with Michael, teaching the boy how to rope and ride properly. He was respectful to Rebecca, never giving her any reason to maintain her suspicion. He won over Sarah and Tommy by carving them little wooden animals in the evenings, sitting outside the barn while the children played nearby, and Josephine worked on mending clothes. Josephine found herself watching him sometimes, when she thought he was not looking. He worked hard, never complaining, never shirking a task. He was good with the children, gentle but not overly familiar. He treated her with respect, always calling her Mrs. Vance, always maintaining proper distance. But sometimes she caught him looking at her too, and there was something in his eyes that made her heart beat faster, something she had not felt since the early days with Jacob. She pushed the feelings away. It had only been 2 months since Jacob died. She had no business thinking about another man, especially not a drifter who would probably leave in the spring. October came, bringing cooler weather and the stark reality of the approaching bank note deadline. Josephine did her calculations over and over, but the numbers never improved. Even if they sold half the cattle now, they would not make enough to pay the note and have enough money to get through winter. She sat at the kitchen table late one night, staring at the numbers by lamplight, feeling desperation creep up her spine like cold fingers. A soft knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find Benjamin standing there, hat in hand, looking concerned. "I saw your lamp still burning, Mrs. Vance. Is everything all right?" She should have said yes, should have sent him back to the barn, but she was tired and scared and desperately alone. "No, nothing is all right. The bank note is due in 3 weeks and I do not have enough money. Even if we sell cattle now, we will come up short." He was quiet for a moment. "How much short?" "At least $100, probably more. Mr. Keeler at the bank has already told me he will not extend the note. If I cannot pay, he will foreclose." "What about your husband's family? Could they help?" Jacob's parents died years ago. He had a brother in Missouri, but they had not spoken in 10 years. I wrote to him after Jacob died, but I have not heard back. She wiped at her eyes angrily. "I am sorry. You should not have to hear this. I wish I had money to help. I have about $20 saved and you are welcome to it, but I know it is not enough." She looked up at him, shocked. "I could not take your money, Mr. Nash. It is just sitting in my saddlebag doing nothing. If it helps, I would be glad to give it." "You are already working for almost nothing. I cannot take your savings too." He stepped a little closer, his expression earnest. "Mrs. Vance, in the weeks I have been here, I have seen you work yourself near to death trying to keep this place going. I have seen you go without supper so your children can have more. I have seen you get up before dawn and work until you can barely stand. If $20 helps you keep this ranch for those kids, then it is the best use I could put it to." Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. It had been so long since anyone had offered her kindness without expecting something in return. "Thank you, but $20 will not be enough, and I will not take your money just to delay the inevitable. Then we will find another way. We have 3 weeks. Let me think on it." True to his word, Benjamin spent the next few days riding around the area, asking questions in town, talking to other ranchers. Josephine continued her work, trying not to think about what would happen when they lost the ranch, where she would take the children, how they would survive. A week before the note was due, Benjamin rode back from town with news. There is a ranch up in Nevada, near Elko, that is looking for experienced drovers to bring 100 head of cattle down to San Bernardino. They are paying $200 for the job, but it would mean being gone for about 6 weeks. Josephine's heart sank. "You are leaving?" "No, I am saying we should take the job, both of us. I cannot leave my children for 6 weeks. What if Rebecca stayed in town with Mrs. Henderson? She told me today that she would be happy to have the children stay with her. Her own kids are grown and gone, and she gets lonely. Rebecca is old enough to help with the younger ones, and Mrs. Henderson would keep them safe and fed. You already asked her." "I asked if she would be willing if you agreed. I did not make any promises." Josephine sank into a chair on the porch, her mind racing. It was dangerous, driving cattle that distance. But $200 would pay the bank note and leave money for supplies. Benjamin was an experienced drover. She had gotten much better at handling cattle and horses over the past months. Could they do it? What about the ranch here, the animals? "Old Mr. Peterson said he would look after your place if you needed. He only lives a few miles away. I already talked to him too. You have been busy." "I told you I would think on it. This is the best solution I could come up with." She looked at him, this man who had appeared out of nowhere and worked himself to the bone for her family. "Why are you doing this? You could just leave, find easier work somewhere else." He met her eyes, and for the first time she saw something deeper there, something that made her breath catch. "Because you and those kids deserve to keep your home. And because I have been drifting for a long time, and this is the first place that has felt like it mattered if I stayed or went." The cattle drive was hard, harder than Josephine had imagined. They left on a cold November morning, joining up with the Nevada rancher and his 2 other hired hands to collect the cattle and start the long drive south. The rancher, a gruff man named Colton, was skeptical about bringing a woman along until he saw how well Josephine could ride and handle a rope. The days were long and exhausting, starting before dawn and often lasting until after dark. They drove the cattle through mountain passes and desert valleys, dealing with strays and stubborn steers and the constant threat of predators. Josephine's body ached in ways she had not known were possible. Her hands were raw from the reins, her legs sore from endless hours in the saddle. But Benjamin was always there, riding beside her when he could, helping her set up her bedroll at night, making sure she got enough food even when supplies ran low. The other drovers treated her with respect, thanks in large part to Benjamin making it clear that any inappropriate behavior would answer to him. One night, 2 weeks into the drive, they made camp in a small canyon. Josephine was so tired she could barely dismount. Benjamin caught her as she stumbled, his strong hands steadying her. "You should rest. I can handle your horse. I can manage." "I know you can. You can manage everything, but you do not always have to. Let me help." She was too tired to argue. She let him take her horse and stumbled to her bedroll, lying down without even eating. She woke later to find Benjamin sitting nearby, keeping watch, a blanket tucked around her that had not been there before. The drive continued south, through desert heat that felt impossible in November and cold nights that had them all huddled near the fire. They lost 3 cattle to a mountain lion, found 2 more that had wandered off days before, and weathered a brief but violent thunderstorm that scattered the herd and took a full day to gather again. Through it all, Josephine found herself relying on Benjamin more and more, not just for his skill and strength, but for his steady presence. He never panicked, never lost his temper, never made her feel weak for being tired or scared. He treated her as an equal partner, asking her opinion, listening to her ideas. And sometimes, when they sat by the fire in the evenings, they would talk about things that had nothing to do with cattle or the drive. He told her about growing up in Texas, about losing his parents to fever when he was 12, about working ranches and learning everything he could about cattle and horses. He talked about the beauty of Montana in summer and the brutal winters of Wyoming. He spoke about feeling adrift, never quite finding a place to call home. She told him about meeting Jacob when she was 18, about the early years when they had been happy and hopeful, about watching the ranch slowly fail despite all Jacob's hard work. She talked about her fear of failing her children, of not being strong enough to do what needed to be done. She found herself sharing things she had never told anyone, secrets and fears and hopes she had kept locked inside. One evening, 3 weeks into the drive, they sat slightly away from the main camp, both too tired to sleep just yet. The stars spread overhead in a magnificent display, and the desert air was cool and clean. "Can I ask you something personal, Mrs. Vance?" She looked at him, surprised. He was always so careful to maintain proper distance. "All right. You ever think about what comes after you save the ranch, after the children are grown?" "I try not to think that far ahead. It seems like too much. But if you did think about it, what would you want?" She was quiet for a long time, looking up at the stars. "I suppose I would want to feel safe, to not be so afraid all the time, to have someone to share the burdens with instead of carrying everything alone." She glanced at him. "What about you? What do you want?" "A place to belong. People who matter if I am there or not. Maybe a family someday, though I always figured I was too much of a drifter for that." "You are good with children." "With my children." "Your children are easy to be good with. They are kind and smart and brave like their mother." The compliment made her flush. "I am not brave. I am terrified most of the time." Being brave does not mean not being afraid. It means doing what needs to be done even when you are scared. And you are one of the bravest people I have ever met. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the way he was watching her. There was warmth in his gaze and longing and something deeper that made her heart race. For a moment, she let herself wonder what it would be like to not be alone, to have this man beside her not just as a hired hand but as something more. Then she looked away, guilt flooding through her. "It is late. We should rest." He nodded, standing and offering her his hand to help her up. His hand was warm and calloused, strong and steady, and she held it perhaps a moment longer than necessary before letting go. They reached San Bernardino 4 weeks after leaving Nevada, all 100 head of cattle accounted for. The buyer inspected the herd and paid the Nevada rancher, who in turn paid Benjamin and Josephine their share. $200, more money than Josephine had held in years. They said goodbye to Colton and the other drovers and started the journey back to Panamint. It was shorter without cattle to drive, but still took over a week of hard riding. By the time they reached the bank in town, it was the day before the note was due. Mr. Keeler looked surprised when Josephine walked into his office and counted out the money. "Mrs. Vance, I confess I did not expect to see you today." "I am paying my note, Mr. Keeler." He counted the money slowly, then wrote out a receipt. "Very well. The note is satisfied, though I must say I am curious as to how you came up with the funds." "Through hard work and honest dealing, which is more than some people in this town can claim." She walked out with her head high, Benjamin following behind her. Outside, she stopped and looked at the receipt in her hand, hardly able to believe it was real. The ranch was safe. They would not lose their home. "We did it," she whispered. "You did it. I just helped." She turned to him, her eyes bright with tears. "We did it together. I could not have done this without you." Before she could think better of it, she hugged him, right there on the main street of Panamint. He stiffened for a moment in surprise, then his arms came around her, holding her gently. She could feel his heart beating against her cheek, steady and strong. She pulled away quickly, suddenly aware of people watching. "I am sorry. That was inappropriate. Do not apologize. You just saved your home and your children's future. You have every right to be happy." They rode to Mrs. Henderson's house, where Josephine's reunion with her children was joyful and tearful. The kids had been well cared for, but Tommy cried and clung to her, and even Rebecca looked relieved to see her mother safe. Mrs. Henderson refused payment for keeping the children, saying it had been a pleasure having young ones in the house again. The ride back to the ranch felt different somehow. Josephine was acutely aware of Benjamin riding beside her, of the way he had supported her through the cattle drive, of how much she had come to depend on him. The children chattered excitedly in the wagon, telling her everything they had done while she was gone, but part of her attention was always on the man riding nearby. When they reached the ranch, it was late afternoon. Mr. Peterson had kept his word. The animals were all healthy and the place was in good order. Josephine started to prepare supper while the children unpacked their things and Benjamin tended to the horses. That evening, after the children were in bed, Josephine went out to the barn. Benjamin was brushing down his horse, working by lamplight. He looked up when she entered. "Kids all settled?" "Yes. Happy to be home." She hesitated. "Mr. Nash, I wanted to talk to you about your wages. 10% of the spring cattle sale is not enough for what you have done. Between the work on the ranch and the cattle drive, you have earned far more. We had a deal." "I know, but it was not a fair deal. You have worked yourself to the bone for us. You used your own money to pay for supplies on the drive. You have gone far beyond what anyone could expect. I want to pay you what you are worth." "And what am I worth to you, Mrs. Vance?" The question hung between them, weighted with meaning. She looked at him, at his honest blue eyes and his kind face, and felt something in her chest crack open. "More than I can pay in money. You have given us more than labor. You have given us hope. You have given me strength when I had none left. You have been patient and kind and good with my children. You have treated me with respect and never taken advantage even when you could have. I do not know how to repay that." He set down the brush and walked toward her slowly. "I did not do any of it expecting repayment. I did it because I wanted to, because you and those children deserved help, and because somewhere along the way this stopped being just a job and started being something more." Her breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I think you know what I mean. I think you have felt it too, the way things have changed between us. I am not asking for anything, Mrs. Vance. I know it has not been long since you lost your husband. I know you need time, but I need you to know that I am not going anywhere. I want to stay, not as a hired hand, but as someone who cares about you and your children, as someone who wants to help you build a life here." Benjamin. It was the first time she had used his given name. "I am afraid. Of me. Of what I am feeling. Of being disloyal to Jacob's memory. Of making a mistake. Of trusting someone again and being let down." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. "I cannot promise I will never let you down. I am human and I will make mistakes, but I can promise I will never stop trying. I will never leave you to face things alone. I will work beside you and support you and care for your children as if they were my own, and I will love you with everything I have if you will let me." Tears streamed down her face. "It has only been 4 months since Jacob died." "I know. And if you need more time, I will wait. A year, 2 years, however long it takes. I am not going anywhere." She looked at their joined hands, at the way his rough, work-worn hand cradled hers so gently. The children would talk. The town would talk. People would say terrible things. Let them talk. All that matters is what is true. And the truth is I care about you and your family, and I want to be part of your lives if you will have me." She thought about the long, terrible months after Jacob died, the fear and exhaustion and loneliness. She thought about Benjamin appearing like an answer to a prayer she had been too proud to say out loud. She thought about working beside him, talking with him, relying on him. She thought about how safe she felt when he was near, how the burden seemed lighter when he was there to share them. "I care about you too," she whispered. "More than I thought I could care about anyone again, but I need time. Not years, but some time. The children need time. We all need to adjust to this new life before we make more big changes. I understand, and I will be here for as long as you need." She squeezed his hand, then let go. "Thank you for everything." Winter came to Panamint, bringing cold winds and occasional snow. The ranch settled into a new rhythm. Benjamin continued to sleep in the barn, but he took his meals with the family now, and gradually became a fixture in their daily lives. He taught Michael more about ranching, helped Rebecca with the heavy chores, played with Sarah and Tommy, and talked with Josephine in the evenings after the children went to bed. Slowly, carefully, they learned each other. Josephine discovered that Benjamin loved to read, but had few opportunities to get books. She lent him Jacob's small collection, and they discussed stories and ideas by the fire. Benjamin learned that Josephine had wanted to be a teacher before she married, that she loved music even though she had not sung in years, that she was fiercely protective of her children, but sometimes forgot to protect herself. The children adjusted to Benjamin's presence in different ways. Michael attached himself to Benjamin immediately, following him around and asking endless questions. Sarah and Tommy, younger and more adaptable, simply accepted him as part of their family. Rebecca was more cautious, but gradually warmed to him as she saw how happy her mother seemed, how much lighter her burdens were with Benjamin there to help. One evening in January, Rebecca approached Josephine while she was mending clothes. "Mama, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Are you going to marry Mr. Nash?" Josephine's hand stilled. "What makes you ask that?" "The way you look at each other. The way he looks at you like Papa used to look at you before things got hard, and the way you smile now more than you have in a long time." "Would it upset you if I did marry him?" "Eventually, I mean. It is too soon to think about such things now." Rebecca was quiet for a moment, her needle moving through the fabric she was mending. "At first, I thought it would. I thought it would mean forgetting Papa. But Mr. Nash says things that Papa used to say about you being strong and smart. And he does not try to replace Papa. He talks about him with respect, tells Michael stories about good fathers he has known. I think Papa would like him. I think Papa would be glad someone is here to help us." Josephine pulled her daughter close, tears in her eyes. "You are very wise for 13. I just want you to be happy, Mama. You have been so sad for so long." Spring came late to California that year, but when it finally arrived, it brought green grass and warm sunshine and new life. The cattle had survived the winter well, and it was time to take them to market. This time, Benjamin drove them to the sale while Josephine stayed with the children, though it felt strange to have him gone even for the few days the trip took. When he returned with a good price for the herd, Josephine insisted on paying him properly this time. They sat at the kitchen table doing calculations, and she pushed a stack of bills toward him. "This is your percentage, plus back wages for the work you did before the cattle drive, plus your share from the drive itself. It is not as much as you deserve, but it is fair." He looked at the money, then at her. "This is over $400. Yes, you have earned every penny." "Josephine." He had started using her given name in private, and every time he said it, it sent a warm flutter through her. "This is enough money to buy into a ranch, maybe even buy a small spread of my own." Her heart sank. Oh, of course, you have been planning to move on, I should have realized. That is not what I meant. He pushed the money back toward her. I meant this is enough for a man to feel like he has something to offer, enough to make him feel like he is not just a drifter anymore, like he has value, like he could support a family. She stared at the money, then at him, her heart racing. What are you saying? He stood and came around the table, then did something that shocked her. He knelt beside her chair, taking her hand. I am saying I love you, Josephine Vance. I love your children. I love this ranch and this life we have been building together. I know it has not been a year yet. I know some people will talk, but I do not want to wait anymore. I want to be your husband if you will have me. I want to help you raise those 4 beautiful children. I want to be here for every sunrise and every sunset, for every hard day and every good one. I want to build a future with you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Benjamin, you do not have to answer now. I know it is fast. I know you might need more time. Yes. He looked up at her, hope and uncertainty in his eyes. Yes, you need more time. Yes, I will marry you. Yes, I want you to be part of this family. Yes to all of it. She slid from the chair to kneel with him, framing his face with her hands. I love you. I did not think I could love again, but you have shown me that hearts can heal and grow and love more than once. You have been patient and kind and strong when I needed strength. You have loved my children and respected my grief and waited for me to be ready. Yes, I will marry you. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight, and she felt something inside her finally settle, finally feel safe. When he kissed her, it was gentle and sweet and full of promise. They married in April of 1879, 8 months after Jacob's death. Some people in town did gossip, saying it was too soon, that Josephine should have waited longer. But most people who knew the family were happy for them. Mrs. Henderson cried at the simple ceremony in her parlor. The children stood with them, Michael holding the ring, Rebecca holding a small bouquet they had picked that morning, Sarah and Tommy standing on either side looking solemn and important. The preacher asked if anyone objected, and the room was silent. When Benjamin spoke his vows, promising to love and honor Josephine, to care for her children as his own, to be faithful and true, his voice was steady and clear. When Josephine spoke hers, promising the same, she felt Jacob's memory blessing them rather than haunting them. That evening, they had a small celebration at the ranch. Benjamin had moved his things from the barn into the house, into the room that would now be theirs. The children were excited and nervous about the changes, but Benjamin handled it with his usual gentle wisdom. After the younger children were in bed and Rebecca had gone to her room, giving them privacy, Benjamin and Josephine sat on the porch in the evening air. She leaned against him, feeling peaceful in a way she had not felt in years. I never thought I would be happy again, she said quietly. After Jacob died, I thought the best I could hope for was survival. And now I have hope. Now I have love. Now I have a partner to face whatever comes. He kissed the top of her head. We will face it together, all of it. The good and the bad, the easy and the hard. The children are going to test you, you know. Now that you are officially their stepfather, they will try to see what they can get away with, he laughed. I am ready for them. Well, maybe not ready, but willing to try. That is all anyone can do. Try their best and love them through the mistakes. Life settled into a new normal over the following months. Benjamin was a good stepfather, firm but fair with the children, never trying to replace Jacob but earning their love and respect in his own right. Michael called him Pa within a few months. Sarah and Tommy followed suit shortly after. Rebecca took longer, but by summer she was calling him Father Benjamin, a compromise that suited them both. The ranch prospered under their joint management. Benjamin's experience and Josephine's determination made them a formidable team. They added to the herd, repaired and improved the buildings, even bought the adjacent property when it came up for sale. Money was still often tight, but it was the tightness of growth and investment rather than desperation. In December, 9 months after their wedding, Josephine realized she was pregnant. She told Benjamin on a cold evening when they were alone in their room, nervous about how he would react. They had never discussed having children together, too focused on the 4 they already had. He stared at her for a moment, then broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen. "Truly, we are having a baby. Yes, are you happy? I know we have our hands full already." "Happy, Josephine, I am thrilled. Overwhelmed, terrified, but thrilled." He pulled her close, his hand gentle on her stomach. "A baby, our baby. You will not treat the others differently, will you? I could not bear it if they felt less loved. Never. They are mine as much as this one will be. Maybe I did not help create them, but I am raising them, loving them. They are my children, and so is this one." They told the children together the next day. The reactions varied from Michael's excitement to Rebecca's shock to Sarah and Tommy's confusion about where babies came from, but overall, everyone seemed pleased about gaining a sibling. The pregnancy was not easy. Josephine was sick for the first few months, and Benjamin took over more of her work, helped by Rebecca and Michael. As she grew larger, the heat of summer made her uncomfortable and tired. But Benjamin was patient and attentive, bringing her water, helping her with tasks that became difficult, never complaining about the extra burden. On a warm September night in 1880, their son was born. The labor was long and difficult, and Benjamin spent most of it pacing outside with the children while Mrs. Henderson helped Josephine inside. When the baby finally came, crying loud and healthy, Benjamin was allowed in to meet his son. He cradled the tiny infant with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. "He is perfect. You are perfect. I cannot believe he is ours." "What should we name him?" Josephine asked, exhausted but happy. "I was thinking Jacob, after your first husband. He was a good man, and he gave you these 4 wonderful children. I would be honored to name our son after him." Fresh tears filled Josephine's eyes. "You would do that, of course. His memory deserves to be honored. And it would be good for the children to know that we remember and respect their father." Then Jacob Benjamin Nash, after both the men I have loved. The older children adored their new brother. Even Rebecca, now 15, enjoyed helping care for him. Michael, 11 now, was surprisingly gentle with the baby. Sarah and Tommy, 9 and 7, competed for the privilege of holding him. One evening, a few weeks after the baby was born, Josephine was feeding little Jacob when Benjamin came in with Michael and the other children. They had been working outside and everyone looked happy and tired. "Mama, look what we finished," Michael said, gesturing for her to come outside. She handed the baby to Rebecca and let Benjamin help her up. Still recovering from childbirth, she moved slowly, but he was patient, keeping a supportive arm around her. Outside, she saw what they had been working on for weeks. A new sign over the gate, carved and painted. "Nash Family Ranch." "Do you like it?" Benjamin asked. Michael designed the letters, and we all worked on it together. "It is perfect," she whispered. "Absolutely perfect." That night, with all 5 children finally asleep and the house quiet, Josephine and Benjamin sat together in their room. She was nursing the baby, and he was sitting beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "2 years ago, I thought my life was over," she said quietly. "I was alone, terrified, certain I would lose everything. But you did not lose it. You fought for it. We fought for it. I could not have done it without you. You would have found a way. You are the strongest person I know, strong or stubborn. Both. It is one of the many things I love about you." She looked at the baby in her arms, then around at the life they had built. 5 children, a thriving ranch, a good man who loved her. You know what you said that first day, when you offered to work here? I said a lot of things that first day. You said you needed a place to belong. Have you found it? He kissed her temple gently. I found it the moment I rode up that path and saw you fighting with that wagon wheel, too stubborn to quit. I found it in those 4 scared children who needed someone to believe in them. I found it in every sunrise we have watched together and every problem we have solved as a team. This is home. You are home, and I am grateful every day that you let me stay. I am grateful you stopped. I am grateful you saw something worth saving here. I saw everything worth saving. A brave woman, 4 wonderful children, a chance to build something real, and now we have this little one too. He touched the baby's head gently. We are a family, a real family. Yes, we are. The years that followed were good ones, the kind that come after hardship has been endured and overcome. The ranch continued to prosper. They added more land, more cattle. Michael grew into a fine young man, taking over more responsibility on the ranch. Rebecca married a schoolteacher from Bakersfield when she was 19. Sarah showed a talent for training horses. Tommy grew tall and strong, with Jacob's stubbornness and Benjamin's steady nature. Little Jacob, called Jake to distinguish him from his namesake, grew into a bright, energetic boy who kept everyone on their toes. And 2 years after Jake was born, another child joined the family, a daughter they named Hope, because that was what Benjamin had given Josephine when she needed it most. Benjamin and Josephine grew old together, their love deepening with each passing year. They faced droughts and hard winters, good years and lean ones, the joys of watching their children grow and the sorrows that came with life. Through it all, they faced everything together, partners in every sense of the word. Sometimes, when the children were grown and it was just the 2 of them sitting on the porch in the evening, Josephine would think about that terrible day when Jacob died, and the desperate months that followed. She would think about the terrified widow she had been, trying to raise 4 children alone and certain she would fail. And then she would think about the dusty cowboy who had ridden up their path, offering help when she needed it most. The man who had said he would work for food and shelter, who had proven himself reliable and kind and good. The man who had fallen in love with her broken family and helped her put the pieces back together. "What are you thinking about?" Benjamin would ask, always attuned to her moods. "I am thinking about the day you arrived, about how close we came to losing everything, about how you saved us. We saved each other. You gave me a home and a family. You gave me purpose. You taught me that love could be found more than once, that hearts broken by loss could heal and love again. Do you ever regret it? Taking on a widow and 4 children, all the responsibility and hardship." He would pull her close, his answer always the same. "Not for a single moment. Marrying you, becoming father to those children, building this life with you, it is the best thing I have ever done. When I rode up that day and you told me you were raising 4 kids alone, and I said now you are raising 5 with me, I did not know how much I meant it. I did not know I was not just offering to help. I was offering my whole heart, my whole future. And you took it and made it into something beautiful. 5 children, she would say, smiling. You counted yourself as one of the children. Well, I was young and foolish and had a lot to learn about being part of a family. In some ways, you raised me too." She would laugh, and he would kiss her, and they would sit together watching the sun set over the ranch they had built together, the family they had created, the life they had fought so hard to preserve, and then had filled with love and hope. Their grandchildren would come to visit, running through the house where Josephine's children had grown up, playing in the barn where Benjamin had first slept, learning to ride horses and rope cattle and work the land. And they would tell the grandchildren the story of how they met, about the widow who thought her life was over and the cowboy who helped her see that it was just beginning. "Grandma was raising 4 children all alone," Benjamin would say, his old eyes twinkling. "And when I came along, I said, 'Now you are raising 5, because I needed her as much as she needed me.'" "That is not quite how you said it," Josephine would correct, smiling. "The spirit was the same. I knew from the start I wanted to stay. I just had to convince you to let me. You convinced me by being patient and kind and working harder than anyone I have ever known. You earned your place in this family. Best work I ever did." When they were very old, sitting together in the home they had shared for so many decades, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, they would hold hands and remember it all. The fear and the faith, the struggle and the triumph, the sorrow and the joy. They remembered the young widow and the drifting cowboy who had found each other in the hardest season, and had chosen to face all the seasons that followed together. Benjamin died first, peacefully in his sleep at 82, still holding Josephine's hand. She grieved him deeply, but not desperately, knowing they had been blessed with nearly 50 years together, knowing he had lived a full and happy life, knowing he had died loved and surrounded by family. She lived another 3 years after he passed, long enough to see her great-great-grandchildren born, long enough to know that the ranch they had fought so hard to save would continue through the generations. When her time came, she died in the same bed where she had spent so many happy years with Benjamin. Her children gathered around her, her last words a whisper. "I am coming, my love. Wait for me." They buried her next to Benjamin on the hillside overlooking the valley, not far from where Jacob had been laid to rest all those decades before. The inscription on their shared headstone read, "Benjamin Nash and Josephine Vance Nash, beloved parents and grandparents, they saved each other." And in the years that followed, when the Nash family gathered at the ranch for reunions and celebrations, when new generations learned to work the land and love the life their ancestors had built, they would tell the story that had become family legend. The story of the widow who thought she had lost everything, and the cowboy who helped her see she still had everything that mattered. The story of courage and faith and love that endures beyond loss. They would tell how Josephine had been raising 4 children alone after tragedy struck, how she had been at her lowest point, and how Benjamin had appeared like an answer to prayer and said the words that changed everything. "Now you are raising 5 with me." They would talk about how he had not just offered help, but had offered himself, his whole heart and future, and how she had been brave enough to accept. And they would remember that the greatest legacy is not land or money or possessions, but love that spans generations, courage that inspires others to be brave, and faith that believes in new beginnings even after the worst endings. The Nash family had all of that, built on the foundation of a widow's determination and a cowboy's devotion, a love story born in hardship and refined by time into something that would last forever. The ranch still stands today, worked by the descendants of Josephine and Benjamin, a living testament to what can be built when 2 people choose to face life together, when courage meets kindness, when loss gives way to love. And every generation learns the story, keeps it alive, treasures it, because it reminds them where they came from and what really matters. In the end, that is what love does. It takes broken pieces and makes them whole. It takes fear and transforms it into faith. It takes 2 people who thought they were alone and shows them they never have to be alone again. It takes a widow raising 4 children in desperation and a cowboy with nothing but his horse and his skills, and it creates a family, a legacy, a story worth telling. And that story, the story of Josephine and Benjamin, of loss and love, of endings and beginnings, Of the widow who found strength and the cowboy who found home, that story lives on, passed down through the generations. A reminder that even in our darkest moments, hope can ride up the path and change everything.